Oh, oh, that's very dark. Oh, well, that's not ideal. Hold on. Well, that's too bright. And that's just right. Wow. Bit of Goldilocks. Nope. Bit of Goldilocks action. Yikes. I should have checked that. So as you can see, I have a new haircut. I managed to actually get out today and get my hair cut, which is good. Um, it we went out and did a bit of grocery shopping today. Hold on, I'm just gonna. um, went out and did a bit of grocery shopping today, and um, as we got to the end of the grocery shopping session, I said to my wife, "Hey, man." I probably didn't say man, but I said, "Hey, I actually might go see if I can get a haircut." Because my hair yesterday had actually just started to piss me off. It had started to get to the point where it was becoming kind of annoying and not in, like, you look fresh and dope annoying. It just was, not really great. Um, so I was at Macquarie Center and I wandered over. There's a hair salon next to EV Games and Vodafone on the top level, and there were a couple people waiting, but it wasn't too bad. So I think I waited like 10 or 15 minutes, which is cool. And and yeah, I just said to the woman, three sides and back, blend the top in, don't make it too short. And she did exactly as she was told, which was good. And she was very efficient and very fast. I had a lot of time for her. There was no small talk. She didn't ask me how lockdown was or any of that stuff. She just kind of cut my hair and got on with her job. I respect that. So yeah, so I got a haircut today. How is the outside world? Oh well, like we've been kind of whipping around now for a little while. So like last week, we hit IKEA twice. Yeah, twice. Um, I've been to Bunnings a bunch of times. Uh, the outside world is very outside. Actually, what was interesting to us, my wife and I both said the same thing. Actually, um, we were expecting Macquarie Center to be way way more crowded than it was. Um, like quite a bit more crowded. And on the weekend, it was busy, but it wasn't packed. I don't know if people used their first weekend of freedom to go do something else or what the story was, but they didn't use their first weekend of freedom to go to the shopping center. Let's put it that way. And IKEA was busy, but IKEA wasn't packed, so it was actually pretty reasonable. The queues are long. IKEA, man, if you're watching, and I know you are, because everyone at IKEA watches my stream, you can sponsor if you like. Um, they they need to figure out checkouts, man, because it's not good. Um, they have a few self checkout places, but only one or two assisted checkouts, and it's just not enough. The queues are ridiculous, and so we're living in this world where everybody has to be still socially distanced, and we're worried about transmission in public places and stuff, and that's why retail was closed for so long. Well, having us queue up 10, 15 people deep um, for 10 or 15 minutes to check out of an IKEA, it's not smart, man. You're not doing the world any favors here. Add a few more checkout people. Actually, IKEA was shockingly bad for staff. I've never had an experience like it at IKEA before. Um, we were in the section, I guess the living room section, where they sell coffee tables and stuff. And this whole big living room section, there was one young lady working there, and she was helping somebody through the shortcut to kitchens. And I'm like, so I kind of wandered around and said, "Hey, I need to understand what this tag means, because the I think I said last night, the coffee table that I wanted, it wasn't in stock, but it was in stock. It was in a warehouse or some shit. Who knows? Anyway, I said to this girl, like, do you work in this? She said, yeah, I'm the only person working in this section. And I'm kind of looking over at the section and looking at her, and I'm thinking, why don't you go work in the section where you work? And she was really stressed and stuff. And I kind of get that. They're just young people and stuff, and they're stressed or whatever. But like, far out, man. IKEA, hire some more people. Get more of your staff spreading out. Get them doing checkout. Like, the thing is, there were tons of people at the front of the store checking to see if I checked in and if I used my vaccination passport. Okay, fair, but, you know, hire more people. If that's an extra burden on you, well, so be it. But because, you know, it's really quite weird. I don't know. We had a weird experience at work today. We got an email that went around asking for an anonymous survey, and it was really based on the idea that companies here in Australia, but in Sydney in particular, because people can go back to the office now, companies led by the big banks are driving a really hard line on vaccinations. They're like, you don't get to come back to the office unless you're vaccinated, fully vaccinated. And people are like, oh, no, but on December 1st, I can come back to the office even if I'm not vaccinated. And the banks are like, no shot. You get your vaccination, you come back. If you don't get your vaccination, don't come back. And if you can't do your job from home properly, then we'll invite you to resign. Like, the banks are taking a hard line on this. And I've seen it firsthand because I do work in the banking sector for my job. And I've seen firsthand the banks are not mucking around here. That, you know, you're either fully vaccinated or you have some kind of medical exemption, which the banks are totally cool with. One of the banks, I saw an email from them saying, look, you know, we're happy to accept medical exemptions because those are the people the vaccines are trying to protect. And so it's like, okay, well, that's pretty good marketing. Good for you. And so they're just drawing a hard line. And people think on December 1st, when all these restrictions lift, it's gonna be like, oh no, we'll just go back to the way it was. No shot. Companies are not. There's a lot of companies, they're just not playing around. They're not messing about with this. If they can, you know, you don't have to give them your vaccination status, but they don't have to employ you. They don't have to let you in their office. I can see this ending up in a court somewhere, because there are legal protections in Australia that do prevent people from discriminating against you based on private medical information. But whether or not it stands up, I'm not sure. So I was saying, yeah, today at work, we got a survey and it was anonymous, right? And it was basically, how did it go? Do you think that we should require people who attend the office to be fully vaccinated, yes or no? And then the next question was, would you be concerned if people in the office weren't fully vaccinated, yes or no? So basically, it was kind of like they were feeling out whether or not there was enough staff support to say, well, you know, basically the staff want everybody to be vaccinated. And if you're not vaccinated without a medical exemption, then we invite you not to return to the office. And if you can't do your job remotely, see, for our company, that's not really a big issue because we're kind of moving to that whole kind of come to the office if you want to thing. But it becomes a problem when we all know, like, I know I've been told that I'm able to work from home as much as I want, but I am required occasionally to go to client sites. I am occasionally required to go to the office for workshops, meetings, presentations, etc. Right? Like, I have obligations, and that's not going to change. So if I can't meet the vaccination requirement of a client site, then I can't go there. And if I can't meet our office vaccination requirements, then I can't go there. And if I can't go to the client site and I can't go to my own office, then I can't really do my job. Right. And for me, that's not a problem because I'm double vaccinated. I'm happy, fully vaccinated. I got the vax as quick as I could. Like, no problem. If they want boosters, fuck it. Let's get after it. Right. Like, I don't care. Let's go. More needles. I don't give a shit. Right. So that's really interesting to me. I find it really fascinating. That's starting to be the position companies are taking now. But yeah, so IKEA, hire more staff, man. It wasn't like, it was a nice shopping experience at IKEA, but the checkout was no bueno. The other one that's really interesting, I'm going to have an Anzac Bicky because Anzac Bickies are great. The ones at Kohl's, these are Kohl's Anzac Bickies. They are more chewy than hard. I don't like hard Anzac Bickies. Like, I don't like them. But the Kohl's ones are chewy. And these mothers they're pretty solid. So now I have a mouthful of, I don't know, whatever this is. I don't even know what's in an Anzac Bicky. I probably should look that up. I just stick it in my mouth. But yeah, I forgot what to say. Mustn't have been that important. Oh yeah, that's what I was talking about. So one of the things that's happened a lot, or become quite prevalent in the last 2 years, predominantly since lockdown started, were these payment options. So things like Zip Pay and Afterpay, and now there's Hum and Open Pay and keep eating, you might know. Yeah, that's it. It's but there's all these payment options, right? Klarna and all these other things, right? And if you think back, like 2 years ago, there was Zip Pay that was kicking around. Afterpay was kind of kicking around. But all these other new options have just sprung up. And then you have like the credit card companies are now having to do stuff like this, right? So even PayPal has Pay in 4. So you can buy something with PayPal and pay it off in 4 payments. What else? American Express has I think it's called Spot. Citibank cards have something similar. You can pay in 4 payments. And all these things are interest free. Depending on the model. So like Zip has a monthly payment or a monthly account fee. I think it's like $6 or something. Afterpay has nothing. I don't think OpenPay has anything either. But some of them have like a small transaction fee. Or like I think what's Klarna, I think, or Hum, or one of them. Anyway, I think it's Hum. If you spread out your amount over 10 payments instead of 5, then they charge you like $3 or something. These companies are raking it in. And I kind of was like, this seems like predatory lending to me. When I first saw Afterpay, I was kind of like, this just looks a bit funny. Like it kind of looks a little predatory. And so I wasn't sure about it. And then I kind of dug into it a bit deeper. And so if you don't have money, these things let you sign up with basically a credit card. So some kind of a payment method. So, that they can draw their payment out of. If you don't have money, this could get really bad for you. And I could see how my first initial reaction of this is a little bit predatory. That that would hold true. But if you do have money, these things are actually pretty good, because you're basically getting free money. Now, sorry, again, I have to say this because I said it yesterday. This is not financial advice. I am not a financial advisor. Please speak to a licensed, registered financial advisor if any of this is of interest to you. I'm just a dude on the internet. This is entertainment only. So, it's free money. And when I say that, I don't mean it's like, oh, hey, here's $500. It's free. No, it basically means there's no interest on it. It's free money. There's no fees attached. Like in the case of Afterpay, I assume that they take a percentage of the sale. Like, I think that must be how it works. They get like probably a transaction fee or something from the retailer or some shit. I have no idea. I should probably looked at it before I started talking about it, but that's how I think it must work. And same with some of the other ones. And then Hum, I think Hum obviously must charge a fee somewhere along the line, and so therefore that's how they get paid, right? But ZipPay, they have their monthly account fee, $6, and that's it. That's their money, and they're worth billions. So you as a consumer, this is just free money. Now, you can get yourself in a lot of debt with these things, right? So like you can run up on ZipPay pretty quickly, like $2,000. You can Afterpay, I think they'll give you up to $3,000. Hum, I think Hum starts out at 300, but all of these things, once you start paying back and you start paying off your transactions, all of a sudden the amount of money you can spend goes up. I think Klarna, it starts at like $300, and then you pay it all off, or you pay off if you buy something for like $100 or whatever. They'll instantly, you're like up at 600. So if you have all of these things, you're suddenly like $5,000 or $6,000 in the hole. And a lot of this stuff is due in 2 months. So you can get yourself in a lot of financial trouble very, very quickly, right? And they all will touch your credit report if you don't pay them and shit like that. So you have to be super careful. But if you have money and you have cash and you have a regular income, why would you ever use a credit card? Like, that's just dumb. Don't use credit cards, right? Because if you run up a credit card debt, they're smacking you with 20 points of interest every single month, right? But something like ZipPay or Afterpay, let's just use Afterpay as an example. You can, if you have an income high enough to support the 4 payments over 8 weeks or whatever, you'd be stupid to put that shit on your credit card. Never mind points and all that. That shit points. That's a big giant scam, right? Like, I have points. I have lots of points kicking around. And over the years, they've come in handy. But I'm not $50,000 a year Harry, right? Like, I'm not that guy. So to the average income person, points are worthless. Like, they're just worthless. You'll never accrue enough points to do anything useful, right? I'll give you some classic examples. So I somehow became like a Telstra silver or gold customer, some shit like that. And it's based on Telstra have some, I think it's called Telstra Plus. And based on how much money you spend with them, they give you a certain amount of points. And then every year, if you get a certain amount of points, you go up a tier in that, right? I didn't even know I was a member, right? Didn't even know. I guess they just automatically rolled me or whatever. Anyway, one day I got an email saying, you have all these points. It's like, where did these come from? And so then I ended up buying my wife a set of Turtle Beach headphones with the points that she wanted. That's it, right? I had frequent flyer points. I used to use them a bit for upgrades and stuff, but really frequent flyer points are kind of pointless. What else? My Amex card generates points, and you can use the points to pay off your your charges and stuff. But again, like you have to spend so much money that it's kind of pointless. So if you're a person who can finance an amount of money over an 8-week period, you'd be stupid not to use some of these payment systems. Like Afterpay or Klarna or whatever. It's interest-free money. And so that's the difference between rich people and poor people. Poor people would look at this and say free money and get themselves into a load of debt they couldn't service. That's when these things are predatory. Rich people would look at this and say free money, knowing that in their bank account, they could just stroke a check and pay off all that stuff and probably not even notice. But why use your money when you can use somebody else's for free? Right? Like I went to IKEA on the weekend and I was just mucking around. I hadn't really used these things very like at all. I had accounts and stuff. I was just curious how it all worked. Just use Hum. I have a Hum card on my Apple Pay. I push card. I tap Hum. Now I'm paying it off in 5 payments over however long. It costs me nothing. It's their money. I mean, that's awesome. Why would I mean, even if I'm getting like 0.1% interest, or which is 2/5 of nothing, that cash is in my bank. It's sitting there. It's mine. Right? So I owe Hum $200. So what? Right? They'll take whatever, $40 out of my bank every 2 weeks for, like, I won't even notice. So, like, again, it's the difference, you know, between rich people and poor people. Rich people look at this and say, that's somebody else's money. I get to use it for free. Win. Poor people look at it and say, free money, and get themselves in a load of debt. That's bad. But again, if I'll say it again, if you have money and you have cash, you should consider these things. Like I used, I was on a site a couple weeks ago, and I saw a sticker on the site, and it was from Klarna, and it was like, if you buy something up to $500 using Klarna, if you make 3 payments, they will make the 4th one for you. So I just ran the math. It cost me nothing to use Klarna, I think. Very little anyway, $3 or something, shit like that. I buy something for $500. I pay $375, and then Klarna pays $125. That seems like a pretty solid deal to me. So that's what I did. And then I thought, well, now so I've paid for it with Klarna, and immediately the first payment comes right out of my bank, right? The $125 comes straight out of my bank. No problem. So I wait 10 minutes. I open the Klarna app. I see that there's 2 other payments. There's actually 3 other payments there. So I'm like, well, I wonder what happens. So I paid the second one. I paid the third one. And all of a sudden, they paid the 4th one. Said, oh, congratulations. You've paid it off. Now you have, I don't know, I think I had like $800 or $900 available to me to spend on Klarna now. But yeah, it just gave me $125. It's crazy. So again, if you can cover the debt on these things, and you're going to buy the stuff anyway, and you're going to pay cash, you'd be crazy not to use them. The banks hate this stuff. The credit card companies hate it more, right? The credit card companies and the banks, they've been trying to get these things shut down. They call them predatory. That's why I kind of thought of the word, because I saw something one of the banks saying, oh, these companies are predatory lenders. No, they're not. They're interest-free lenders. They have a better business model. They don't have to charge me 20% on debt. Right? Think of a bank. You have a Combank credit card, right? They're charging you 19.99% interest. Combank is borrowing that money from the Reserve Bank of Australia at like at one point. So you borrow $1,000, right? They pay $10 a year in interest. You pay $200. Doesn't seem fair. So who's predatory here? Afterpay, who charges me nothing as long as I make my payments, or the bank, who would lend me that money, and if I only made the payments, it would take me 75 years to pay off. And I'd pay probably 3 times the price in interest. Who's predatory here? Not really sure it's Afterpay. I think their lending criteria is a bit wonky. Like, don't get me wrong. I think it'd be very easy for people who can't afford it to get money. I agree. But all things being equal, banks give people credit cards who shouldn't have them either. One of the smartest things that the government of Australia did, probably 6 or 7 years ago, was they made it so that banks couldn't give you automatic credit limit increases. Because it used to be, so on one of my credit cards, I think my limit is like $35,000 or something. I never, ever applied for a credit increase, ever. But I've had it for so long. And back in the day, you'd pay off your credit card and they'd say, oh, your $15,000 card now has a $20,000 limit. And then, oh, you now have a $30,000. And suddenly it was at $35,000. I don't spend that kind of money. Don't be stupid. It's a credit card. I'm not going to pay 20% interest on 35 grand. That's nuts. But a few years ago, they stopped allowing that. And they made it that automatic that if you call and you ask for a decrease in your credit limit, they have to give it to you. Because what they used to do, credit card companies used to be, they're quite sick, right? So what the credit card companies used to do was, say you had, I don't know, a $20,000 credit card limit. And you were a smart person and you decided, you know what, I don't need that much. I don't owe anything on this card. I'd like to keep a $10,000 limit on it, but I don't need 20. And that's dangerous because if I ever lose control of my senses and run up $20,000 in debt, it's going to be hard to pay off, right? So what the credit card companies used to do would be, if you called up and said, hey, can I get my limit lowered to say like $10,000? They'd say, oh, okay. Well, basically, you're going to be reapplying for the card. And we'll have to do a credit check on you. And then we'll ascertain what amount of credit we will give you. And so the two elements of that were kind of sneaky was, one, nobody wants to have their credit report checked by a bank. No, nobody wants that. It actually lowers your credit score. But also, too, now there was a possibility you could actually get refused for the card, and now you wouldn't have it at all, right? So people would say, oh, that's just too much work. Forget it. I'll just keep it and I just won't spend the money. So the government changed those rules and said that if you have an approved credit limit of like $20,000 and you want to lower it to $10,000, they just have to do it. They don't have a choice. They have to lower your limit. And they can have a minimum. I think a credit card companies can say that you have a minimum of $2,000 limit or something like that. And below that, it's not worth their processing fees and all that shit. So that's fair enough. And I think that is fair. But I have one card. I think the minimum limit is like $5,000 or something. It might be I have a platinum founders Amex card or something. I think there's a minimum of like $5,000 a year, and that has a $200 a year fee. So you kind of have to have, you kind of got to want to have that card, as it were. So yeah, so the banks were forced into that, which was good, but some of the other changes in the whole system are terrible. Like, so the here in Australia now we have the no, it's a platinum Amex founders card or something. I've had it for 20 years, I think. But one of the things they did change was the credit reporting system. And I think that's what they've done is shithouse. It's terrible for medium income people. They've made credit much, much more difficult for medium income people. Unnecessarily so. So the way the credit system works now, it's called a positive reporting credit system, right? And basically that's bullshit. It's almost the opposite of that. If you're late paying your phone bill, you can have that on your credit report. And it used to be, it was only defaults or serious things. And then what would happen is when somebody wanted to give you credit, they'd get your credit report, they'd have to assess it, and then they would charge you interest based on the level of risk they were taking with you. That's why they charge interest. Well, now a bank, you go get a credit card, go get a home loan, get whatever you want. The bank has, if it's your bank, they have all of your transaction history. Plus, they get this absurdly detailed credit report, right? Where's the risk? We've created a system that reduces their risk astronomically, but we didn't get lower interest rates out of it. Like the whole point, it's quite fascinating, right? The whole point of interest on a loan is because the lender is taking risk. The lender is getting a return on their money for the level of risk they're taking. Credit cards are unsecured debt. So the reason that they're justifiable for having high levels of interest is because they're not secured against anything. The bank is just lending you cash on, or the credit card company is lending you cash on speculation, right? A car loan has a lower interest rate because the bank is lending you money against an asset that it can take back. They put a lien on your car, so you can't sell your car or anything because there's a debt on it, and it's all registered. So they have, but we seem to have lost that connection between risk and reward. Australia, the banking system is gross, right? It's just absolutely gross. There's no other word for it. The banks basically make their own rules, and the government just implements whatever the banks want. And the government, and you can see this is true, the government has been trying for, I think, 5 or 6 years to get the banks to allow customers to take their metadata so that with them when they switch banks, right? Or open it up so that fintech companies can interrogate your bank, right? So say I want to switch from NAB to Westpac. It's super hard. It's really tough because I've got all of my direct debits. I've got all of my, auto pay stuff. I got all that shit tied into my bank account. And if I move banks, I have to redo it all. And the banks argue, well, that's our metadata. No, it's not. It's mine. It's my account. You don't own my financial information. Oh, we own the transactional information. No, you don't. I own it. It's mine. It's my transaction. And it's mine because you tell me it is. You say I'm entitled to privacy, therefore it must be mine. Right? You're just keeping track of it for me. I'm letting you use my money for free. Like, you pay me interest, but the interest the banks pay you is nothing. In fact, I would happily let the bank have my money for free. Just give me my transaction data, right? It's crackers, man. And the government's been trying for 5 years to get them to open it up. So first of all, the banks argued that it was their data, and then the government said, no, it's not. And so then the banks then said, well, actually, it's a security issue. No, it's not. Everywhere else in the world, this is done. You know, parts of Europe, shitty little, I shouldn't say that, smaller countries with less regulation and less oversight, like Lithuania, do this. Estonia has a full digital government and banking system. So how can Estonia do this, but the Commonwealth of Australia can't? Right? Commonwealth Bank of Australia, National Australia Bank, it is all too complex for them. It's too much risk. Rubbish. They just don't want to. Because if you can switch between banks based on fees and service, then they would actually have to compete with each other. Imagine that. You know, the four pillars actually having to compete with each other. So the four pillars policy, if you're not familiar, if you're watching this from somewhere else in Australia, the four pillar policy is basically the government, I think it was the Howard government, I think it was under when Peter Costello was treasurer. They came up with this idea that there were four pillars of Australian banking. There was Commonwealth Bank, National Australia Bank, Westpac, and ANZ. And that to underpin the strength of the or to stabilize and keep the Australian economy secure, these four banks were untouchable. They couldn't be acquired by overseas companies. They had more regulation because they were so big, but they couldn't acquire each other. They couldn't be acquired, etc. And so then that's how we ended up with, Westpac buying St. George Bank, because, well, Westpac's one of the four pillars and St. George isn't, so they can buy that bank. And it had scrutiny and all that stuff. So there's a sensible argument as to why that happened. And it's one of the reasons why Australia kind of dodged the GFC, right? Because our banking sector is very profitable. It's very reasonably well regulated. It's pretty heavily regulated as compared to the US. And there's a lot of separation of church and state. So, banks have limits on what they can actually be involved in, right? Whereas in US, they have a bunch of weird laws in the US about state-based branches and shit like that. But generally speaking, when the something Dodd laws, they all got overturned. And it just was like banking became the Wild West. And that's how you ended up with the GFC and subprime loans and all that sort of garbage. Here in Australia, we don't have that problem. Our banks it's like Canada, the banks are pretty well regulated. But the other side of that is they're so big, they control so much of the economy, they're so profitable that they have far too much influence. And therefore, what ends up happening is it behooves them not to compete with one another seriously. So the government lowers the interest, or the Reserve Bank of Australia lowers the interest rates by 0.5%. And then like 3 hours later, all four of the banks come out and they lower their interest rates all by 0.35. So they all pocket 0.15%, all of them. Now, are you telling me there's no collusion going on there? You have to be pretty stupid or naive to think that the banks all act in unison like that just by happenstance. It's very rare for one of them to do something totally different. Now that interest rates are so low and shit like that, it doesn't matter, right? But it used to be when interest rates were like 4 or 5%, 0.5% interest rate cut was a big deal. And the banks would often pocket a bunch of that, and they'd all do it. And then they just say, oh, well, regulate us. And the governments all would just go to water and wouldn't do anything. So in Australia, dead set, if you wanted to be elected, it would be super easy. The first thing you do is you go after the banks. That's it. You just say, I'm going to regulate the banks. If you did that in Australia, they wouldn't elect you prime minister, they'd make you the king. People hate the banks here, hate them with an undying passion. If people said, no, if you just ran for office and said, you know what, I'm going to clip the wings of the banks. I'm going to put a super profit tax on those things. If they make over $1 billion in profit, the government's going to take 65% of it. You would have a massive majority. And you'd get all these people on Sky News and everywhere else saying, oh, but Australians are the biggest shareholder. People don't give a shit about that. Don't care at all. The people who own shares in banks, man, that's a dwindling number of people. Nobody I know under the age of 50 has a significant portfolio that includes shares in the 4 big banks. Nobody. There's a bunch of retired folks who, when the Commonwealth actually owned the Commonwealth Bank and then converted it into a private bank and gave all the people who had money in Commonwealth Bank, gave them shares, those people still have those shares. They're those people. They're all boomers, man. They're all in their 60s. That's who owns shares in the banks. The average punter doesn't give a shit. Regulate the hell out of them. Super profit tax them into oblivion. That people don't care. That would get you elected. And nobody does it because they're all afraid of the banks. And the reason they're afraid of the banks is because a lot of the senior politicians, where do they end up? They end up on the boards of banks, and they end up in the boards of businesses the banks own when they're done their political career, right? The other one who you could go after in Australia now too would be the universities. They're incredibly unpopular in Australia with the average person. If you went after if you were an Australian politician and you said, I'm going to ban universities from offering foreign students visas to come to Australia, and all of those places in universities that go to foreign students are going to go to domestic Australian students, you would romp into a victory. You'd romp. It would be if you went after the banks and the universities, you would be super popular in this country. People, the politicians, the media, they don't realize how brutally or they choose not to notice how brutally unpopular universities and banks are. Like when last year, in the height of the pandemic, some of the universities started talking about bringing in foreign students, paying for them to fly here, paying for them to quarantine so that they could come as full fee-paying students in the middle of the pandemic. There were people from Victoria at the time who could not even get out of New South Wales to go home to Victoria. They were barred from entering their own state. And universities were talking about taking effectively taxpayer money and flying in foreign students. The outrage, nobody talks about it, but everybody was talking about it. But it's, the media and the government, they're all in on it. They're all in, because again, politicians retire and they end up on, with lectureships at universities, right? Free money. So it's quite fascinating to me. I think if people were serious about, if you were a populist, like all this shit about Trump and that, right? Populism and that. Trump was sort of a populist. Trump appealed to people's baser instincts. And I think that's a part of his, I'll call it a legacy for all intents and purposes. That's the part of his legacy that people didn't understand, right? That particularly the progressive left don't understand. The media in America don't get it at all. Outside of America, the media doesn't understand it at all. But Trump didn't appeal to racism or bigotry or hatred or whatever other ism you wanted to apply. He just appealed to people's baser instinct. He just said, I'm only interested in making your life better. Right? With Trump, there was no other. It was you. You are the center of the universe. He appealed to American individualism. So he could stand up at one of his rallies and say, we're going to make sure that all of the jobs that are created by American companies are created in America and created for Americans. And immediately the left and the progressives and the media and that would call him a racist. But it never resonated because it wasn't about that. He was, and so people, the media don't understand populism. That the average you see it a little bit, right? Academia is loaded with this stuff. They don't understand populism. Academics are actually some of the stupidest people you'll ever meet. If you ever get to know some academics, they're the dumbest people you'll ever meet. They're insular. They have very little world experience, life experience. Everything is basically rear view mirror driving. They're not very forward thinking. And they're extremely dogmatic because their entire position is predicated on protecting their position, right? So they have to teach their thing because that's what keeps them employed. Academics create nothing anymore, right? It used to be in the 70s and stuff. Academics were thought leaders, and academics were driving the next generation of thought leadership. They had the freedom through, tenure, where they couldn't be fired. Academics had the freedom to test the boundaries of societal thinking, and that was their contribution. Well, in the 70s and 60s, academia became political. Basically, it became left-wing ideology. So universities became indoctrination camps for progressives, and that's not a political statement. That's just a fact. Like 98% of professors at Harvard vote Democrat, right? Like they're left. They're politically left. They're leftists. There's no diversity of thought in those places. They are homogenous in their thinking. And that's academia. Go to the University of Sydney, go look for somebody who would vote liberal in a Sydney university or Monash. Go. You'll never find a professor who will. You're more likely to find a professor who votes for the Greens than you will vote for the Liberals. So these academics, if you consider that the Liberal National Party, let's just call it one thing, they get about 42% of the popular vote. The Labour Party tends to get about 33% of the popular vote. So between these, so the Liberal National Party is the largest political party. They get the most primary votes in the country, no matter what election you're looking at. And about over 40% of the public vote for them every time. But our universities, none of those, there's no voters that represent that point of view at a university. Why is that? How is that good for society? Right? And you hear the word diversity thrown around a lot. But a university is about thinking. It's about creativity. It's about thought. And there's no diversity of thought at those places. They all think exactly alike. They only vary in minor ways between each other. They're all singing the same song, just in slightly different octaves, right? There's no uniqueness to them. It's like if you go somewhere and you see a bunch of young people and they're all dressed, they all have like blue hair and they all look sad and all that. They all think they're being individuals. There's nothing individual about them. They're all just part of it. It's just their uniform, right? There's no uniqueness about them. They're all just the same. I usually joke. I see some of my Zach's friends, right? I said to one of them, he was dressed up and he was wearing some weird clothes and stuff one day. And I said, mate, you're totally unique, just like everybody else, right? And he's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, look around. Like, all of the people you're hanging out with look exactly like you. They're just slightly different color clothes and different color hair, but you all have odd color hair and you're all wearing, the same type of clothes. It's just, different than, a sports team. You just have slightly varied uniforms. Drives them nuts, right? When you tell people who think they're unique that they're actually not, that they're just conforming to a subculture, they get very, very annoyed. I like annoying people like that, to be truthful. I think rattling some cages and rattling some bars is a good thing. It keeps people on their toes. My wife dislikes that about me. She thinks that I troll people for fun. I do. I admit to it. But I tend to look at it like I'm not necessarily trolling you to be mean or nasty. I'm kind of trolling you to get you to engage your critical thinking. I do this a lot. Climate change is the big one for me at the moment. We're in the midst of an energy crisis and all these people want to rely on sunshine and wind. And I ask the questions like, what happens when the wind doesn't blow and the sun doesn't shine? How do we have refrigerated meat? And it's staggering. I actually, it's about a year ago. I was at a shopping center in Sydney, and there was a political rally outside the shopping center. Stupid. And there was a local, sort of federal politician, she here locally in Sydney, and she was elected basically on, I'm not the other guy, and, climate change is evil. We need to save the planet. That was her whole thing. It was really very naive. People didn't so much as vote for her as they voted the other guy out of office. But anyway, I just happened to be standing next to her while some idiot child was talking. And I said to her, I was like, just out of curiosity, do you know how many gigatons of CO2 the entire Australian populace puts out, like the entirety of Australia put out a year? She had no idea. So this is a person who sits in federal parliament, is adamant that she's going to help force the government to commit to net zero by 2050. And she didn't even know how many gigatons of CO2 a year the country produces. She didn't have any idea. So I explained to her it was, 11 million. And she said, well, that's a lot. I'm like, it's not really a lot. I mean, it's a lot in abstract terms, but in context, it's not. She said, well, it is. We need to make it less. And I said, do you know how many gigatons of CO2 there is in the atmosphere? She had no idea. Okay. So you don't even know what percentage of the entire CO2 output or the CO2 in the biosphere is, but you think it's too much, right? It'd be like standing next to the Pacific Ocean and somebody fills a thimble of seawater, walks over to you and says, is this a lot of seawater? Yeah, it looks like it's a lot of seawater. Look at that thimble is almost full. And they're standing next to the Pacific Ocean, right? There's no idea. It's utterly clueless. So I said, okay. I said, do you know how many gigatons a year China produces? She had no idea. I said, do you know that China now produces about 33% of all atmospheric CO2 per year? Well, but there's 1.3 billion Chinese people, right? But there's 7 billion people in the world. They're producing a third, and it'll be 40% by 2030. and you're worrying about us. And I said, do you know how many gigatons a year they're actually producing? She had no idea. And so I tell her what it is. And I said, do you know how many gigatons of CO2 a year China's increasing? She's like, well, no, they've committed to reducing. I'm like, no, they've said they are. That's not what's actually happening. And I said, and they're reporting an amount of increase, but that doesn't actually mean that that's all that there is. That's just what China's reporting, right? And she was sort of trying to argue. I'm like, but you don't have any facts. I have facts, right? And you're telling me that I'm wrong, but you have no facts. I have facts. I said to her at one point, I said, we can jump on Google and look this up if you want, right? It was a pleasant conversation. We were just standing next to each other while like I said, some idiot child was talking about the climate. They didn't understand either. And I said to her, well, do you know that China, their increase per year is 10.8 gigatons, and it's increasing. I said, so if Australia, as a whole country, next year produced 0 CO2, 0, do you know that just the increase alone from China would completely replace all of that CO2 that's being released into the atmosphere? So what's the point? We could literally turn off CO2 from Australia. Stop it, 100%. Like net zero tomorrow. And not even net zero, because net zero is a bullshit accounting trick, right? Actual zero. Never mind net, actual zero. And in 12 months' time, China would be producing enough that it would completely eliminate that savings in 1 year. And it's increasing. So what are you doing? You're not doing anything. You're not solving the problem. I said, you have a skinned knee and your carotid artery in your neck is severed. And you're worrying about getting an infection in your knee while you're bleeding out from the neck. I said, if you believe that there's a climate emergency and it's caused by man-made greenhouse gases, so CO2, methane, whatever other, argon, whatever other gases you think are causing this problem, you think that's a serious issue, and I'll agree with you that, then why are you focusing on the 0.4% and ignoring the 33% and growing? Isn't that where you need to stop the bleeding? Right? Conversely, if China didn't increase at all, the difference in their non-growth, so just stability, would be Australia. Think about that, right? And then anything we saved would be a net saving, right? If China just stopped adding CO2 to the atmosphere, then anything Australia cut would be a net output saving. But they won't even commit to stop. And if you go to the Kyoto Accords, right, or the Paris Climate Treaty, right, the failure of the Paris Climate Treaty is that it doesn't prevent countries like China and India from increasing their CO2 output at all. It actually says they're allowed to. I think from the time it was signed to 2030, when it expires, China was allowed to increase their net CO2 output by 40%. So who is this meant to help? The total amount of CO2 from when the Paris Treaty was signed to 2028 or 2029, I think it expires, 2030 effectively, the total CO2 output increases. So what are we doing? You can't justifiably say that you're interested in reducing this problem when you're not actually interested in reducing the problem. You're just talking about bleeding out more slowly, right? Or in this case, when you're focusing on Australia, you're talking about, making sure you don't die of sepsis from the skinned knee while you're bleeding out from your carotid artery. That's what's actually happening there. And to see we're having this climate net zero debate in Australia again, in the midst of an energy crisis. Literally, you have to be a dummy to not realize the planet or the world's economies right now are in the middle of an energy crisis right now. OPEC is not producing enough oil, so the price of gasoline has gone through the roof. Oil is at 7-year highs. The United States has stopped fracking, so they can't even produce their own petroleum products anymore. Right? So the price of gasoline in the U.S. is up. England can't even drive trucks. They're so goddamn useless that they can't even move petrol around. Europe, if Putin has his way, there will be people in Europe freezing this winter because he's not getting his gas pipeline. The Americans won't let it happen. China is basically now saying they're going to just start importing Australian coal again. They're not going to live up to their net zero obligations that they committed themselves to stupidly. India has 135 coal power plants, and they're increasing them. They're actually adding more. Japan is adding more. Australia has 4, right? 4. They're very efficient, and they want to shut those down. And then dig into who wants to shut them down. Mike Cannon-Brookes, Simon Holmes a Court, Malcolm Turnbull. What are all these people invested in? Renewables. Okay, now it makes sense, right? I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't need to be. There's no conspiracy. This is just facts. These are truths. It's all public record. You can go look. It's not a conspiracy theory if it's true, right? What the actual conspiracy theory is when you tell people who disagree with you they're conspiracy theorists, you're actually conspiring to withhold the truth. That's the actual conspiracy theory, right? So I kind of am in the point where my wife says you're a troll. I'm not actually trolling. I'm educating people, and the beauty of my position on something like climate change is I actually think anthropogenic climate change is actually a thing. I actually think man-made outputs are altering the biosphere. I believe that. I just don't believe that you solve the problem with sunshine and wind. It's just stupid. You're a dummy if you believe that. And it's easily provable. There's tons of data available to validate my point of view. You have no identifiable source of truth that has any reality behind it at all to validate what you're saying. And my position of I believe there's anthropogenic climate change happening, right? So when you say, oh, the science is settled, okay, me too. I agree with you. Science is settled. We agree. So now it's not a science problem. Now it's an engineering issue. So take all your fake climate scientists, right? People who have geography degrees and call themselves climate scientists, take them away, move them off somewhere because I'm not interested in them. They're not solving problems. They're creating problems. They're getting paid to create fear. That's climate research is just fear mongering, right? So if we agree the science is settled, I don't need to know anymore. All that research can now stop, and we'll take all that money and we'll move it into engineering solutions for how to solve climate change. And it's not we need more solar panels. No. How do we actually remove CO2, methane, argon, whatever climate greenhouse gases you think are causing this problem? I'll let you choose. I don't care. I have no dog in that fight. Pick whatever you want. Pick them, and then we'll put engineers on the problems of how do we get that out of the atmosphere? How do we reduce that? That's it. And we'll put the politicians aside. Go away. You're useless to me. You and your net zero and all that other shit. Just get out of the way. Not interested. Let's get some engineers and let's get them to solve the problem, because that's how we actually function as a society. Scientists tell us a problem. Engineers solve the problem. Engineers understand the math behind it, and then they go fix it. So let's do that, because that works. It's provable. We know that works. You know, if you want to go to the moon, you don't hire scientists. You hire engineers, right? You want to go to Mars, you don't hire scientists to build you rockets. You hire engineers to design rockets based on scientific principles, right? So we accept anthropogenic climate change is a real thing. We accept these are the gases that need to be fixed. Let's go get people who come up with answers for that. And those answers could be, oh, we need more solar panels on roofs and all that stuff. I'm open to whatever you want. But if you're sitting here telling me that windmills are the answer, you're a dummy, and I can't listen to you. And if your answer is, well, but the scientists aren't there to solve problems. The scientists are supposed to be there to tell us what the actual science is, and then get out of the way and let people actually solve problems. So my position on this has always been pretty sensible, I think. That I'm happy to agree with whatever the prevailing wisdom is. I'll agree with it. But I get to have input into the decision on solutions. Right? I like to solve problems. I think the problem we have in society is that we have too many people who profit from creating problems. The media, politicians, activists, academics, they all actually make more money by creating problems rather than solving them. Because they don't actually make anything, right? If you think about it, solving a problem requires the creation of something. It requires you making something. The media don't make anything. Politicians don't create anything. Academics don't create stuff. Activists don't do anything. They just complain. So those people are not problem solvers. They're problem makers. And if you're being generous, you'd say they're problem identifiers. Right? If it's a real problem and you're serious about it, let's get the right people involved. Right? If I want to go to Mars, I don't hire a geography major. I hire an aerospace engineer. You know, I don't hire a guy who studied rock formations. I hire a guy who studied, the fundamentals of engineering, who understands Archimedes, right? Aerodynamics. I want to know that. But anyway, so I'm not a troll. I just like to solve problems, and I like to identify the truth. Anyway, we should play some video games, because why not? Today I'm going to play some Modern Warfare, I think. I'm in the mood to shoot some people. Before I do, this Ricochet anti-cheat. I just noticed it now. Man, Activision have really put their little boys on the line with this one. If this thing doesn't work, they're in a lot of trouble. I guess it's a matter of how well it works rather than if it works, or it's, I guess, that was sort of a stupid position for me, but it's not about if it works, it's about how well it works, right? Like, it'll work, but will it work? That's the big question, right? So I'm fascinated to see, because they've really kind of hyped this up now. And if they've hyped it up as a marketing exercise to sell Vanguard and it doesn't deliver, I think there's a lot of goodwill that just got burned by Activision there. I think they've burned a lot of goodwill. it'd be very hard to recover. So yeah, this Ricochet anti-cheat's going to be interesting. I saw something about like some of the source code and shit got leaked. And I just sit there and I'm just like, man, I think I even tweeted about it. All of a sudden, everybody in the Call of Duty community is a kernel driver level expert. It's like, that's not how this works, right? Like, if I have a kernel driver and the code gets source code, like you could open source it for all intents and purposes, right? It doesn't reduce its effectiveness. The only thing that it would do is if there's something that's not well written in there, or there's something that could be exploited in there, then that's a possibility. But then that's fixable. But if you think that having the source code for a kernel driver allows you to somehow bypass it, you're just kind of showing your ignorance. Like you don't know how it actually works. So anything that operates at that level, like at ring 0, that's a pretty high level of authority and authentication and security in the stack. And it's looking for things that are signed. So it doesn't let software that isn't signed out. And so, I mean, I'm pretty sure that our friends at Engine Owning aren't getting Microsoft to sign off on their cheat software. So it'll be an unsigned piece of software and you just don't run unsigned software. Now, that has its own implications. If you run a weird product, like a weird input device that has small company behind it and has a weird driver or it has whatever, you could run into problems. Sure. Okay, don't do that. Right? Don't use shitty unsigned software. That's actually dangerous for you. That's, if you're running unsigned software, you're a dumbass. So Activision having an anti-cheat software that actually blocks you from doing that when you load up their game, they're actually doing you a favor. And then you see people, oh, well, this is going to run all the time. That's not how kernel drivers work. That's how the Vanguard, the Valorant anti-cheat worked. It was stupid. It was badly written, right? That they ran that at startup. Well, that's really dumb. It doesn't need to do that. So you launch Call of Duty Warzone, and as part of the executable, it instantiates a driver that's authenticated and authorized to run at ring 0. And now it's intercepting and it's effectively patrolling what interoperates with its own, with the software. So it's looking for interrupts. And if it sees an interrupt coming from an unrecognizable source, it blocks it. And so presumably what happens is Ricochet then has the ability to then report back that this user is trying to interoperate with Vanguard or Warzone using an unauthenticated data source or input source or whatever. And then it probably sends a pattern, and then they look for a pattern matching, and then that's how they'll ban you. I would imagine that's how it works, but that's how kernel level works. It's not, oh, there's a hole. Oh, we know how it works now. So suddenly the kernel's there. That's not it, man. Like, if you think it is, you're a stupid ass. Stop talking about stuff you don't understand. My camera's gone a bit funny again. So anyway, I don't know. We'll see. Like, let's just see what they come out with, and then we'll criticize it or not when it's released. That's my take on it. I'm gonna wait until Activision actually release the product, and then I'm gonna decide whether or not it's any good. Until then, we're all just kind of guessing. But at least I understand how it works. So you should listen to me on that front. Just wait and see. Okay. This is just... so I keep playing around with my PC. I'm toying around with different settings and stuff. I changed the way Windows interoperates with my CPU now. So it uses the cores a little bit differently than it did. I'm not getting sound here. Why am I not getting sound? Okay, there we go. It should have been on default, but anyway. All right. Let's play Shipment. We'll I like the CX-9. I'm enjoying running the CX-9. I have somebody who's a friend of mine on. Oh, Noob's on. What's Noob doing? Is he still playing Warzone? I don't know who you are, but we're not friends. So I'm interested to see what my frame rate's going to do. I'm going to drop into performance mode, and we'll see what. Okay. Yeah, CX-9. We'll run that tonight for a bit and see what happens. So I'm curious to see how my frame rate goes tonight. One of the things I noticed is that there's a seemingly... Whoa. Hello. There's some kind of leak in Modern Warfare. There's a memory leak or something. I can't... Oh, why are you hiding back there? Oh. I had my hands on the wrong keys. Whoa. Wow, what did that guy shoot me with? Did he switch guns or something? How did I was like one shot. Thanks, bud. You just jumped right in front of me and wow. Your movement is impressive. Oh, I slid right into the bullets that time. That guy Brucey. He's just hiding behind barrels and stuff. Throwing... So I guarantee this guy is going to be over here this time. Oh. Well, that's interesting. Wow. Look at them all. They're all down there. That guy Brucey just hides behind the barrels. Wow, must have hit a claymore. Did that person really lay down a claymore? Yikes. Wow. I am like, I've never seen a a lobby where everybody, like, their movement is like this. Holy shit. These controller players, man, they just have a... They are in... Look at them. They're all just hopping around. Wow, my aim was off there. Look at them. Jesus. That guy just constantly... He's just constantly throwing smoke grenades and then hiding behind a barrel. Oh my god. Look at them. They're like they have ants in their pants. They're always jumping. Far out. I am I wish this person, whoever this is who's dropping those claymores, I wish they'd die and just... How does that guy know where I am? Ah, see? This was the dude. So he's throwing smoke grenades. Look at... He's pre-firing me? That guy, Brucey, he's the guy who's throwing smoke grenades and then just... And that one, Sarah, what's her name? She's all she does is she just lays down a claymore and runs. Look at that guy, he's laying down over there in the corner. Far out, man. I threw it too far. All that guy's doing is just mounting up, hiding behind the barrels. Those two Asian roach skin dudes, they're kind of annoying. What? Where did I get shot from? I'm having to increase the speed with which I play at, because trying to shoot people. Oh, I ran right into it as I was reloading. Holy shit. Jesus. Far out. Where did that guy... Holy shit, he's like Superman jumped. Look at now, the Claymore girl is hiding in the container. Come on, man. What? What's going on? Holy crow. Ah, far out, man. Wait, why are you... There needs to be a penalty in this game for jumping. Because this guy, Keith, all he does is jump. Holy crow. That's just missing shots, man. Wow. Holy crow, man. That was a pretty... That was a pretty... holy shit, I died 65 times. That was a pretty serious lobby. I'll have some SBMM, thanks. Far out. Where did that come from? Whoa. That hurt my eyes. Oh my god. Hey, Infinity Ward. Can you figure out how to make your SBMM work? Because there's no way I should have been in that lobby. I think that's something they need to do. If you drop shot, there needs to be an ADS penalty. And if you jump, there needs to be an ADS penalty. Because you shouldn't be able just to basically slide cancel and bunny hop and shit all over the map. And like, you shouldn't be able to do that. There should be some kind of movement penalty for that type of unnatural movement, right? Because those guys, most of them didn't even run. They just bunny hopped all over the map. Okay, so I'm kind of curious what my FPS is going to be like. Actually, you know what? It's sort of in the 160s, 170, which is higher than what it was.
Hardpoint. Capture and defend the hardpoint.
What?
Capture the objective. Taken the hard point. Taken the hard point.
Shit. I ran out of bullets.
Enemies taken the hard point. We've got the hard point. Enemies taken the hard point. Hard point lost.
Stop it. Come on, man. What? This guy Jum is just sitting in there in the corner.
10 seconds. Hard point.
Why do you keep throwing smoke grenades down there, mate? Oh. What is this guy doing?
Hard point secured.
Fuck, he's just mounted.
Hard point contested. Taken the hard point.
Some idiot put down trophies. Believe that. I just was gonna hold that point. I mean, they threw smoke. Oh, far out. That guy Jum is actually super easy to kill. Because he's just stationary. He's a stationary target with that. Ugh. You're just hiding behind a dumpster, bro. What happened? Why didn't I kill that guy? Oh, fuck. I lost my Wilson straight away. Whoever that guy is. Whoever that dude is with that rocket launcher is a clown.
Enemies taking the hard point. Go, get to the next one.
Come on, man.
Enemy cluster strike. Take cover. Hard point secure. Hard point contested.
I'll just sit there and shoot that corner. That rat's gonna be there all day. Ah, come on, man.
Hard point secure. Right. Take cover.
Fucking. Why am I dying so quickly in these? They're just standing there sniping. Look, fucking rat.
Get to the next one. That's the hard point. Enemy overhead. The enemy took the hard point. That's the hard point.
How did that happen? Hold on a second here. This guy is got it. Dude, you have a rocket launcher. They're all camping the fucking... They're all camping the hard point. Why are you shooting down the wrong lane, dummy? Like... Wow. Again, that was pretty intense. This guy has no shot. He should be playing the game. He just sat there and camped the whole game. Look, he couldn't even hit shots mounted with a sniper rifle. Get out of it. You're terrible. You're awful. That was a little bit better, but man, that first game was full on. Holy crow. I wouldn't say that I figured out my FPS issue, but I'm a little bit happier with the performance. I think I could improve it, but because I get off stream, I'm getting 200 FPS in Shipment, and it seems like on stream I'm getting like 160, which is a fairly significant drop, but it's not like outrageous. Okay, so this guy Jum, he's back, so what'll end up happening here is he's just going to sit there and snipe from a mounted position in a corner. So, so we'll have to go kill him. He's kind of free kills if you can get a lick in, because he doesn't move. There's no movement with him. You can get your shots off and don't miss. It's really interesting how the FPS kind of moves. Like, see, it's kind of dropped now. I'd really like to get it at 165 and then just frame cap it at that, because that's my monitor refresh rate. So if I could frame cap it at that, that would be pretty awesome. There he is. There's old mate Jum just hiding behind the barrels. We'll go kill him now. Oh, they're all hiding behind the barrels now. Okay. Oh. Hey, Jum. Milky Milky. That's a good game. Got you again, Jum. Look at you, Jum. You're just absolutely getting obliterated, son. Milky Milky got me again. Yo. What up, Milky Milky? Milky Milky, or oh, it was your Nan this time. Where is he shooting me from? He's behind that barrel. Is he still there? What? Milky Milk. We've lost the lead. Oh, I got him. I didn't realize there were that many hiding in there. You're a rat, Jum. Killed you again. Oh. Milky Milky, I gave you a free kill, bro. That anonymous guy. I'm backpedaling because okay, so Jum will be in this corner somewhere. So there he is. Oh, I spawned right in front of my old mate. Oh, I'm just spawning in front of people now. Milky Milky has absolutely destroyed me. Milky Milky again. Oh, Jum. Oh, I thought I got him with his own sniper rifle. That would have been awesome. Oh, fuck. He was crawling. Come on, guys. Stop blocking my way. Look at them all, just hiding down there behind the barrels, huh? Wow. How did I keep missing that person? Holy crow. Whoa. Fuck him. Okay, so they're now down back there. Okay. What? Oh, Jum, you little cheeky bunny. Come on, somebody shoot somebody. Oh, Jum. Uh-huh. Oh, I had time to line you up, John. They're all just ratting out back there. Oh, John. I ran out of bullets. Look at my teammate. He's standing next to the guy with the sniper rifle. Like, you're an idiot, buddy. What are you doing? Like, dead set. What is that? What was that man doing? He was standing next to him, and I had to go over and kill him. I just wanted to kill Jum. I had no other ambitions in this game. Fucking Jum. Come on, man. You're standing right next to that person. You were standing right next to them. How did you lose? Like, that dude just... I don't know what he was doing. This guy, BYFC Broken Smile, he just sort of stood next to Jum and let him shoot me multiple times. I'm done. I'm all done for the evening. I want to get to bed at a reasonable hour, so we're gonna quit that, and yeah, we're gonna call it an evening, I think. Couple of those games are rough, man. Not like that first game. Holy crow. That lobby had ridiculous movement. They were well out of my league. I should not have been in that lobby. Let's just put it that way. But anyway, it was fun. We'll be back Wednesday night. I don't know if I'm going to play Modern Warfare, if I'll play something new. I'm still trying to figure it out. I got to do a bit. I'm really super busy at work right now. That's kind of part of the problem. I don't have a lot of time at this stage during the day to think about streaming or anything else. I'm kind of so busy with work that I actually just don't have time, unfortunately, to devote to it. Because before I was busy, but I had an hour here and there where I could kind of sit down and think about what I want to do on stream and stuff. But yeah, this week I haven't really been able to do that, unfortunately. And I probably won't for the rest of the week. I'm super busy. So we'll see what happens. But anyway, thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate it as always. Hopefully should be back Wednesday night. Playing some video games, shooting the shit, whatever. And yeah, thanks for coming, and we'll catch you then. Cheers.